3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
All right, welcome to Roots of Reality Experiences. I'm your host, Ben Baumann, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of hope. So life for many around the world is a struggle. And this has especially been the case throughout history, where most people didn't dream of becoming rich or famous like many seem to do in the age of social media. Instead, people dreamed of being able to not go hungry and take care of their families. And so now I will share a few different historical stories of people who had to overcome a bit of adversity in life to create a better life for themselves. Now, just starting off, going back to the 1600s, we have the Herbine family in France. And this was an era where tension between Protestants and Catholics in Europe was quite high. Obviously, in the 1500s, the Protestant Reformation challenging the Christian authority of the Catholic Church began, which was led by Martin Luther. And the ripple effects of this were that many people across Europe began converting from Catholicism to Protestantism. The Herbine family were among those people to convert from Catholicism in France to Protestantism, despite the fact that France was the majority Catholic society still, and tension between Catholics and Protestants were quite high. Despite this, though, initially the Herbine family was protected by the Edict of Nantes, which was a law put in place in 1562 by the French king Henry IV, allowing people like the Herbines to practice Protestantism in the nation freely without fear of persecution. Unfortunately, though, about 100 years later, this law would be stripped away by a Catholic nationalist king named Louis XIV, who would deem Protestantism illegal. Thus, all Protestants were then given an ultimatum to either leave France and their homes forever, convert to Catholicism, or be persecuted and punished if they stayed. As a result, left with pretty bad choices, the Herbine family decided to flee France as refugees and ended up in Protestant-friendly Germany, before shortly eventually going to colonial America, where they'd be free to practice their faith without threat of persecution. So this really is a great story of hope, because many of us in life could never imagine being forced out of your homeland because of a belief that you have. And certainly the helplessness of that situation, the uncertainty the Herbine family must have felt, would be extraordinarily high and incredibly stressful. But as many have to do throughout history in all families historically, when facing some sort of tragedy or crisis in life, they just kept working to rebuild their lives and eventually were able to. So next, fast forwarding to the 1800s, there is the story of George Washington Plympton. George grew up in a humble family. His father was a farmer, but he dreamed of becoming an engineer. Now, he didn't have the money for education, but he did have the talent and work ethic and the dream to be successful. So he would later get a job in a machine shop where he would manage to save up enough money to get an education in engineering. And he worked hard and would eventually become one of the top engineers in American society, despite his humble beginnings. In fact, he was so successful that during the American Civil War, he was an engineer for the Union Army. He also worked on the Brooklyn Bridge and was a well-known university professor in New York City, where he was often considered to be one of the best and creative professors there because of how he would communicate complex subjects. In fact, he would often use magic tricks to help students understand physics, and was always patient and kind to believers or supporters of pseudoscientific beliefs. And instead of talking down to them, he would talk to them as equals and attempted to explain to them why scientifically things like magical abilities or perpetual motion machines were not possible, when many others of the day would certainly ignore them and just demean them as some type of kook that's not worthy of their time, thus serving as an example of how science communication should be to the public, despite this continuing to be an issue where a lot of scientists aren't interested in communicating when they should be, even to this very day. And lastly, we have Fred Baumann, who was a first-generation American born to Swiss immigrant parents in New Jersey. He grew up in the early 1900s in poverty and worked beginning at age 12 in a silk mill to help his parents earn money. Later, though, he would get married and start a family, but like many families, they were hit hard by the Great Depression of the 1930s and struggled tremendously. And thus, Fred really had a hard time keeping his family afloat and was often changing jobs and moving his family. In fact, his family would move 12 times over the stretch of only a few years for different jobs. And despite this grind and struggle that he went through, he was able to eventually pull his family out of poverty and become the vice president of a corporation in the textile industry, and dramatically changing his family situation. And so all these stories come from history, but also are stories that represent my own ancestry. And they are a reminder of how, in many ways, life is just a game of overcoming one problem after another. There are many things out of our control. For example, we can't help where we were born or what our genetics may be, or the amount of wealth we are born into, or what things may just happen to us by chance. But regardless, we just keep moving and keep grinding away, doing the best we can to have the best life possible. Because at the end of the day, our life is our story, and there's no certainty of what should or should not happen in our lives. The universe doesn't owe us anything. It is just about making the most of the life we have and understanding it is only our life to live, and that no one else will ever know what it is like to be you. So others may be born with advantages that you don't have and never will have. But that doesn't make their life better than yours. It may be easier in some ways, surely. But again, the meaning of life and its success is up to you to determine. So with that, live the best life according to what you want from it. Not according to what pop culture likes to claim success is in life. Because when we all die, we're all the same, rich or poor, we're all dead. So don't live based off of the need for fame and fortune, which too often stems from insecurity and the desire to live for some sort of superficial acceptance of others, where life isn't about some type of meaning you've determined to be what you live for, but rather based off of just things that don't really matter all that much at the end of the day. And it's really based off of attention seeking and kind of enslaving yourselves to money a little bit. So instead, live life seeking happiness based on what actually matters to you. Try to make money, but don't make that the all-encompassing meaning of your life. Just like you shouldn't make seeking fame as the all-encompassing meaning of your life. Because then you're just either living for money or you're living for fame, and you're not living for yourself. And one day you want to be able to die knowing that you lived your dream, not someone else's. And that's the best life one could ever ask for. So no matter how screwed up things get in life, I think the main takeaway here is that history is hope. All of our ancestors, no matter who you are, or where you're from, or what your situation is, helped give you the life you have today, helped make you exist today, because they were able to overcome the challenges they faced in life, allowing you to even be here today, to even imagine hope for the future. Because our ancestors, instead of giving up, survived to give us opportunity. So with that, as always, remember, billions of years led to you, so make the most of it.